Public Q&A presents AskReddit question. What's a subtle sign that someone had a rough childhood? From personal experience, they always have a defense about what they're doing, and why they're doing it lined up. I was verbally abused and mocked a lot as a child or teen. It hurt me a lot because it didn't matter if I did something right or wrong, I would get yelled at for it, so I learned to have an excuse prepared just in case I have to answer for what I am doing. Even in my adult life, I feel like I am always thinking to myself ways to justify what I am up to, even if it's something as benign as why I put a dish away where I did. No one ever asks about the mundane stuff I do, but I always feel like I have to be ready to defend myself. It really sucks. I shouldn't have to justify my existence. Me 100%. And it always feels like my reasons are never valid enough, so I instinctively fluff them so they appear more convincing and valid. Even if people don't ask for reasons, I over-explain, and have a million different reasons and still feel like none of them are good enough. Especially in terms of setting boundaries in relationships or sticking up for myself. Insanely independent. They've learned not to trust anyone to help them, so do everything themselves. I do this because during my childhood, I had no one to depend on. It has been very difficult to create intimacy as an adult when you don't want anyone to do anything for you. You should read Adult Children of Emotionally Immature Parents. I did last year, and it discussed the different kinds of emotionally immature parents, and the types of defense mechanisms their children tend to develop that last into adulthood and relationships. One of them being some kids manifest their anxiety that they don't really understand is anxiety yet by becoming super high functioning when it comes to problem solving and generally learning how to be competent adults. Like the feeling you learned as a kid of you have no FKN clue what you're doing, so you makes you do a 180 when developing life skills, but deep down, you can be an anxious mess whose worst fear is feeling like your life is one fuck up away from being out of your control. I read that and thought, damn, welcome to who I am. It made so much sense once that book made me think about it. Edit. Wow, thank you for the gold. I find comfort in knowing there are apparently plenty of seemingly confident and competent adults who are in fact 100% faking it, and are just bundles of anxiety a few inches beneath the surface. LOL. I do this, but not because I have had a tough childhood, it's just that I don't trust people to do something in some specific way that I prefer. It is one of the toughest things to not get upset when I trust someone to do something the way I like it done. Like, I don't want to tell you how to do it, but then I get upset when it's not to my standards. Son of a bitch, I am my father. Fuck. My sister-in-law adopted 3 siblings who are completely self-sustainable at a very young age. When they were visiting, I noticed a lot. If I gave anything to the oldest boy, he would pass it off to the youngest sister. Then I would give him another, and it went to the middle sister. Then I would give him another, and he'd finally keep it for himself. I asked if they wanted water. He said yes, and I asked if the girls wanted water too. Oh, we can all share this one. Obviously I gave them all water, but that one hit me pretty hard. He knew their eating schedules and would nag my sister-in-law. Offered to make them mac and cheese or noodles or whatever we have laying around. Promised to clean up after. He was 12 years old. When normal kids play video games, they're glued. This kid was constantly checking over his shoulder to make sure everyone was safe, and if he felt one of his sisters was up to no good, he would put the controller down even if it meant dying or losing his progress in the game. To elaborate on up to no good, what the oldest brother considered bad behavior was pretty innocuous. There were several instances of things I consider normal childish behavior that he would regularly put a stop to. The most outstanding one was being too loud. It wouldn't even be yelling or screaming. Just typical 5-year-old make-believe noises that would cause him to run over and tell the little one to keep it down. Oh, that's a lot for a 12-year-old to take on his shoulders. I hope he and his sisters are doing better now, and their future will be brighter. If anything, he was taking on more than what a parent would take on. Not only did he have to parent them, but he also had to enforce the strict standards that his abusive parents put forth. Standards that change based on time of day, how they feel, whether or not they're high or craving drugs, etc. I'm sure it would have been easier to just raise them on his own in an apartment, totally unsupervised. They're no longer with my sister-in-law, but they still have contact with her, and are in a better place. Thanks for updating. It's people like you and your sister-in-law that make a lasting impact on people's lives. I will always remember some people because of a couple things they have done for me. Out of curiosity, could I ask why your sister-in-law gave them up after adopting them? It may be they were colloquially using the term adopted to refer to fostering, in which long-term parental rights are not granted. The children may be placed back with the parents or relatives, or rehomed, or adopted out from a foster family. As a former social worker with foster children, food hoarding was an early clue of a tough childhood. As a 26-year-old woman with a good-paying job, and the ability to go buy food whenever I want, I still hoard food in my closet and hidden cabinets. Reactive attachment disorder is rough. Same. I grew up poor as hell or homeless, where we'd go a day or two without food sometimes. We couldn't even get food at school because my mom was always unable to pay outstanding lunch fines, and I am allergic to peanuts, so I couldn't eat the sandwiches they set aside for poor kids. As soon as I got a steady job, I gained 30 pounds from just the complete inability to shop or portion food for myself, and I had to work with a therapist to stop food hoarding tendencies. I recommend finding that therapist early if you can, because fuck me, that weight is hard to get rid of once you got it. Many adopted fly under the radar because DCFS can not only be nosy, they can take kids whenever they want. I was raised from 10 under the radar like this. My guardian could never understand why I didn't act like a kid. More of a roommate. Because my brain was basically forced to act like an adult. This is why if children are getting frustrated, many times an adult is not treating them with enough respect. Don't ever expect respect just because you're older. Sounds a lot like that oldest boy was parentified. It's common in a lot of general abuse or neglect cases, which is unfortunately what probably led to their adoption. Basically, a sibling, usually the oldest, takes on that parental role to fill the void their actual parent has left empty. I see it a ton in my work, and it's always heartbreaking. It's what happened to my son. His mother has severe psychiatric issues, and he ended up taking care of her when I was away at work, reversing the roles. A worried 5-year-old asking his mom to calm down and take her pills is heartbreaking. This reminds me of when my nan fostered 2 kids, 5M and 2F, and the brother was always making sure his sister was taken care of first. He rarely let her out of his sight, and constantly reassured her through everything. If he did ever go anywhere without her e.g. doctor's appointment, etc., on the way out of the door, he would tell her multiple times, "Don't worry, I will be back soon." It absolutely breaks your heart to see they have shouldered so much responsibility so young. They got adopted by somebody else after about a year with my nan. Luckily their baby sister, who was being fostered separately, also got adopted with them to the same new parents. Siblings got to look out for each other. My shitty childhood would have been unbearable if I didn't have my sister. Even when everything else sucked, we knew we had each other's backs. If our parents weren't going to take care of us, we would take care of each other. Siblings got to look out for each other. Sadly, they don't always. Sometimes an abusive parent treats their children wildly differently, resulting in one or more golden children and one or more scapegoats. The golden child Ren gets favorable treatment and is called upon to act as a lieutenant, ganging up on the scapegoat. It's not a happy childhood for the scapegoat. Edit. Subreddit raised by narcissists. The most outstanding one was being too loud. It wouldn't even be yelling or screaming. Just typical 5-year-old make-believe noises that would cause him to run over and tell the little one to keep it down. I've seen this before in kids fearing parental retribution for normal behavior. It's heartbreaking. Basically had to teach a kid through adult example that being goofy isn't a capital offense. Oh my god, I just want to give those kids a hug. Hophephobia, or the fear of being touched, is definitely one of them. Flinching at loud noises or quick movements. Wanting to be at work and doing good all the time. Inconsistent hobby practice, i.e. drawing, but only sometimes drawing, and then dismissing what you drew as not good enough. Can you not describe my issue with hobbies, please? I can't focus on one. I think I am not good enough and find a new one, thinking that I am supposed to be immediately good at something. I hate it. Well, because of that I have a very vast amount of knowledge on very random things, but it's never deep knowledge, if that makes sense. I remember going to summer camp as a kid and meeting Milo. Milo was big on attention seeking and validation, and would take food from the cafeteria back to his bunk, like eggs and toast. I remember thinking he was just weird, but I think looking back and knowing what I know now, he was probably being neglected at home. Thin as a rail and probably malnourished, so he wanted as much food as he could get, and just wanted someone to acknowledge him. Pretty sad stuff. I came here to post about food hoarding. Obviously, there are a lot of reasons why a person might have a complicated relationship with food, but food hoarding is often specifically a behavior that stems from childhood food insecurity. If you don't get to eat regularly as a little kid, your lizard brain may never really believe that whatever food you have is enough. I think that can be generalized to a lot of behaviors. Whatever you were missing out on as a kid, attention, affection, food, security on some level, you're going to be seeking that out for the rest of your life. This is my husband all over. We have an extra fridge freezer, a large chest freezer, and a converted food pantry in the back of the garage because the kitchen was full to bursting. There is so much food here we could withstand a siege. I just go with it. I understand why he does it, and it has come in very handy during the lockdown. I just realized why my kitchen is overflowing. I was blaming the pandemic, but really that just exacerbated the issue. Many nights as a kid I went to bed hungry. Wow, okay. Thank you for sharing. My ex from high school wore clothing that was way too small for him. His hair was always really long and kind of unruly. He had really poor hygiene habits, like I bought him the first toothbrush he'd had in years, and my mom bought him clothes pretty often. He was an ass for a lot of reasons, but looking back through the lens of adulthood, he had never been taught to take care of himself. His father was a hoarder, and that house was disgusting. I think he was pretty neglected growing up. Attention seeking, even if it's negative attention, had always been a big flag to me. Same with compulsive lying. I think a lot of it is telling big stories as a way of getting attention. They feel the need to fabricate or embellish in order to have or keep attention. Also, there were kids at my school who were always hurt. Like they wanted or needed medical attention for the smallest of injuries, and would use it to get people to feel sorry for them. They always were wearing some kind of brace or bandage or visiting the nurse. Sometimes it was a legitimate thing, but a lot of times I felt it was something used to get attention. I went through a compulsive lying phase from about age 10 through, I dunno, 22 or so. A lot of innocuous stuff, like I really wanted the snooty horse girls in my 4th grade class to believe I had an uncle with a sprawling horse farm. It was absolutely attention-seeking, and I have been beating myself up about it since day one. Looking back, of course it was attention-seeking behavior. I was so lonely. We talk about compulsive lying as such a pathetic behavior. Most people who recognize it just write you off as a nutcase or toxic or untrustworthy. But at 10, I was a little kid who didn't believe anybody could possibly like me. My self-worth was non-existent. The fact that the lying continued through adolescence is because of the internet became a thing, and I could almost effortlessly develop a whole new identity, which is intoxicating to somebody who feels worthless all the time, and 2 I was intelligent and imaginative enough to juggle the lies, so consequences came very slowly. It's very appealing to treat liars with contempt, but it takes a special person to recognize the behavior's roots in abuse and neglect and find some compassion. I hope anybody who went through a lying phase, or is in one right now, can be kind to themselves. It's not pathetic to want people to like you. It's human. I feel like I wrote this myself. I was very neglected and extremely lonely as a kid, and even though I am 30 now, that has not changed. I try not to lie anymore, but 4 to 15, I lied constantly. Things I liked or didn't like, what I did over the weekend or summer break, cute little anecdotes. I just desperately wanted friends. Hope he's doing great now. Wishing you all the best, Milo. Someone who rarely shares what happens at home or talk about their family. Damn, this hits close to home. In elementary school, I used to struggle with writer's block, and while yes, that was true, a lot of it stemmed from a fear of judgment. People wouldn't like my ideas or writing. I felt like what happened at my home specifically was wrong compared to everyone else, and thus didn't want to write about it. This was hard considering a lot of elementary school writing prompts involve writing about family. I also didn't want to lie and make up something that didn't happen as it felt wrong. They apologize habitually, compulsively, and for everything. Even for things that have nothing to do with them. I remember saying sorry for accidentally tapping my friend's hand, and he was like, "You don't have to apologize for everything," and I just automatically apologized again, which led to more apologies. This one hurts. I am constantly told to stop apologizing, and it gets so frustrating trying to explain that I can't help it. It was a survival mechanism in a home where I had no say, and would get in trouble for everything. Even the things they told me to do. I will literally apologize to the void for my very existence when no one else is present. Stand up from my desk and reflexively whisper, "I am sorry." The void forgives you. The void loves you and sees your progress. The void is proud of you. It wants you to rest easy knowing you're doing your best, and that you have nothing to be sorry for. All hail the void and its loving embrace. PSST, hey, I know who you are. Hail Scythes. Aw man, thanks, void. It's not your fault. If I bang my knee against my desk, I apologize to the desk. I don't know why. Yep. And everything is their fault. They take you to a restaurant and the food sucks. They apologize profusely for it and feel terrible about it. It somehow has become their direct fault. When things get tense, they move and breathe very silently, and are hyper-aware of everything that is happening and everyone else's actions. I find that they also read people very well, but still have poor judgment when it comes to close relationships. Okay, I just had a realization cause of this comment. Cause, when I was a kid my parents would fight, and if I was even existing in their way, I would take the end of it, and I just got good at being quiet and flexible, hiding in small spaces. I am sorry you had to grow up with that. Sadly, you aren't alone here. It's amazing that we have the power of invisibility, and don't even realize it sometimes. Having the ability to function as their own parent at a young age. Talking like an adult at a young age. Anything else that shows they had to grow up fast. Edit. Thank you to everyone who upvoted and for the awards. To everyone else who wants to split hairs over talking like an adult, please stop explaining your interpretation of this phrase. People who have seen it know what I am talking about. It's great if you are raising your kid to speak properly or understand adult topics. Obviously, I am not referring to such a situation. Also, the question is, what is a subtle sign that someone had a rough childhood? Not what is an obvious sign of abuse. When I was 15, I had a whole network of supportive people in my head. They took care of me, helped figure out my emotions and told me how much they loved me, basically provided validation. Whenever I achieved something big, and my parents didn't acknowledge it like I wanted them to, I would throw myself small parties in my head, and get up early to eat a small cake or something to celebrate. I still remember them sometimes. They were the parents I never had. Same. Hugs. I just want to tell you or anyone else who needs to hear this that you deserve to be loved and validated because you existed. You shouldn't have ever felt like you had to earn that from them. You existed to be loved, and anything short of that was entirely their failings, not yours. Ah yes. I was constantly told that I had an old head on young shoulders. By many different people. Yup. I was always so mature for my age. Thanks. It's the depression. You're very mature for your age. Not until I was 16, I noticed that I had a monotone, emotionless tone in my voice. Even when I showed excitement, you wouldn't notice it in my voice. Subconsciously, I suppressed any sign of human emotion in my tone. After I moved away from the area I grew up in, I found myself expressing emotions more and more. But only good emotions. Everything else is fine. Something exciting happening, I bounce around and talk super quick, and am more open to hugs. I'm not overly affectionate. Anything crap happening, and I answer all questions with I am fine, I am good, cheers. I tend to go more monotonous, and generally keep to myself. Watch their table manners. Meals are forced contact time in bad households, and it can easily show. Some examples are becoming less talkative or withdrawn during meals. They realize their elbow is on the table and they jerk it away quickly, or something innocuous like a sneeze at the table causes undue shame or embarrassment. Conversely, someone who grew up without parental guidance can also develop odd eating habits. In the case of a co-worker of mine, they collect the condiments near them. She would pull the ketchup bottle out of the little rack on the table, use it, and then keep it by her plate instead of putting it back. I asked if she was done with it and she said, "Oh, sorry." I ate a lot of meals alone growing up. Turns out she grew up with a single mom who worked 2 jobs, and she was used to nobody being there to pass things. I have to constantly remind myself to slow down when I am eating with other people. My siblings and I inhale our food because the faster you ate, the faster you could leave the table, and less time at the table meant less chance of getting in trouble for something. If my dad couldn't find anything to be mad about, he'd settle for having attitude, which meant whatever he wanted it to mean at that moment. Christ, this thread is reading like my childhood trauma greatest hits collection. I used to involuntarily flinch when someone around me moved or gestured quickly. My parents were the masters of lightning quick punches that came with no warning. Ends up ingrained in you that fast movements equals get ready for a punch. Mine were different. If they came in and I was taking a break, like watching a show or seeing some other websites, I would get inspected, basically asked a shitton of questions about what I was doing, and had to lie low for a week. There were a ton of normal sites I see that they don't approve of, and if they see me there, I got yelled at a lot, and who boy do those shoutings mess up my head. Got beat too sometimes. Can't figure out whether or not to permanently cut off contact with shitty parents, or who go back and forth, cutting off and trying again, and cutting off and trying again. Even considering it means your childhood was X shitty. And if you want to but can't do it, it probably means your childhood was X times shittier than that, to erode your sense of self and healthy boundaries to the point where you know what you have to do, but have been brainwashed by your oppressors to the point where you can't bring yourself to do it. Also thinking that achieving something their parents want will mean a happy relationship with them afterwards, as if their love was to be won over. My mom always pushed me to get married. I was so excited to tell her I was getting married, thought she would finally think I was a good person. Well, she tried to talk my so out of marrying me, telling him I was a terrible person and couldn't love anyone. In the end, he decided he didn't want to marry me anymore. I am so sorry that happened to you. I hope you're doing okay. Same here. Only my family are intent on convincing me to leave my husband because he's brown. I got married, yes, but I picked the wrong color. FFS. They'd rather our kids have no father than happily married biracial parents. From the horse's mouth. People-pleasing behaviors. Class clown. Always agrees, overcompensating with laughter during conversation, in an attempt to appease others. Self-isolating. Stops contacting friends for seemingly no reason due to feelings of inferiority or worthlessness. No motivation to make anything of themselves, believing they would only fail anyway. Allows themselves to be bullied. Usually hangs out with or dates abusive people. Conspiracy theorist. Can't live without a sense of impending doom. Will unconsciously find one extremely nervous when doing new things in front of others. Some mature for their age equals didn't get to be a kid or teen. Total inability to accept compliments. No or very few distant friends. As an adult, barely any memory of childhood. No happy stories of childhood. Extremely negative self-talk. I overcompensate with laughter. I have had people ask me how I am so funny and happy all the time, as if I have no problems at all. I am like, bitch, I literally sob for hours, unable to stop, regularly. I just feel like if I can't laugh at stuff then I'll end up crying. I have severe depression and have struggled with suicidal ideation for years, but I doubt most people in my life would guess that. Insecurity. My psychology professor used to joke that psychology is the study of common sense. When someone is insecure, it is generally because they lack security as a child. Parental love was typically conditional and varied depending on the caretaker's mood. The child becomes insecure due to love not being guaranteed, so to earn this basic need, they will go throughout life trying to solve social puzzles that don't exist. Solving imaginary puzzles all the time can prove to be fatiguing, so these individuals tend to isolate themselves. Man, you hit this right on the head for me. I never really understood it like this before, but this helps me understand how my own mind works a bit better. My mother was extremely arbitrary. I remember her making me stay home for no reason when I asked to go and play with my friends. So what I did the next day was clean the whole house after I got home from school before she got home from work, so she wouldn't have a reason to keep me home. I see the world so much differently than most people, it's hard to remember that sometimes. One other thing that goes along with this is hypervigilance and fear of the worst-case scenario. Yes. I always thought if you expect the worst you all never be caught off guard. Also trying to anticipate any possible need, so you can fulfill it before SHT hits the fan. At 51, I still try to meet my fam's needs before they even express it. Doesn't have to be caused by lack of parental love either. You can have a loving home but struggle socially in school, and end up with a very similar result. Bullying etc. will make you insecure too, yes. Ah yes, I remember assessing people's walking habits so I could find the quietest and most low-key spot in the bus stops, cafeteria, etc. I got pretty good at it, seeing what everyone is up to and making sure it has nothing to do with me. Even today I know who stole, who dealt, who lied, etc. Constantly vigilant. Unfortunately for me I had both the bad home and the bullying at school. Or gives hug. Man, you have me thinking. I remember being an extremely confident kid. Me and my cousin were the most popular boys in our grade. He moved away and I got so timid. Other kids began bullying me because they knew my right hand wasn't there to have my back anymore. We used to always fight with these kids because they had bullied everyone else. He left and they took advantage. The following years until HS graduation were a struggle. All the girls still liked me, but I had no confidence. How does one get out of solving these non-existent puzzles and function normally? I can recommend a book, Complex PTSD. From Surviving to Thriving, by Pete Walker. This book helped me so much in understanding what my brain was doing and why. And it gave me tools to change my thinking habits. I just bought this, thank you for the recommendation. I thought everyone was trying to solve social puzzles to get love. From all the many years of therapy I have been through, my main conclusion is you have to educate yourself in the ways of normality, and then practice them until you literally rewire your brain. The longer you have been practicing abnormal actions, the longer it will take for you to overcome and rewrite normal actions. It helps a lot to have a doctor guide you through the process and prescribe medication when needed. Anything else I have encountered has been, in effect, pseudoscience and has been a waste of time. It goes right to Maslow's hierarchy of needs in psychology. The basis is physiological needs, then safety, and third is love and belonging. Maslow believed that if a person has a failure to have their needs met, it can lead to psychiatric illness or other mental health issues. Jumping at every loud noise, apologizing too much, difficulty maintaining eye contact in stressful situations. If the person suffers from insomnia or severe migraines, this is in my case. The stress from my childhood gave me chronic migraines, and there are many more. These are just from my perspective. Edit. I know that these are also symptoms of anxiety. Some are for people or children on the spectrum. These are purely my reactions after suffering a very weird childhood. The first lesson we learn in childhood is, how much am I worth? Our caregivers are the first to reflect this worth to us from when we are infants and toddlers. If we cry, will someone come to us? If we fall down, will someone pick us up? To when we are kids and teenagers, do our caretakers choose to spend time with us? Do we get help with schoolwork or friend drama? There is an important balance here. As kids, we want to be taught that we are equally important as everyone else. Some kids are taught they are less important, and as adults, they may have a hard time asking for help. They think they are bothering someone when they have a problem. They may also prioritize the needs of others based on an underlying belief that other people are more important. Some kids are taught that they're more important than others, and therefore treat others poorly, and have trouble learning empathy. They try to justify, in their own minds, why they are better, which can lead to some narcissistic type thinking or behavior. Edit. Oh hey, I got a silver. Edit again. And a gold. I am unsure as to what to do here, because on one hand, I want to say thank you, but on the other hand, sometimes people make fun of people who say thank you. Reddit's weird. But thank you anyway. Since this got some traction, and because I think it's a good self-check for all of us, here are the second and third lessons we learn in childhood. Second lesson. Can I make effective changes in my life? Basically learning independence, tying shoes, getting a job, resolving conflicts, etc. We want a healthy balance here, a feeling of for the most part I got this, but sometimes I need help. Kids who are neglected sometimes feel they can only rely on themselves. Kids who had their problems solved by over-involved caregivers often don't trust themselves as adults, or never learned how to struggle in healthy ways. Third lesson. Is the world a safe place? Again, balance is key here. We want to learn how to take realistic precautions to protect ourselves from the normal dangers of living. We don't want to get tipped into thinking the world is terrible, and I can't do anything to keep myself safe, nor do we want to think that nothing bad will ever happen to us. Some kids are taught they are less important, and as adults, they may have a hard time asking for help. They think they are bothering someone when they have a problem. Welp. This explains a lot. I also grew up taught that I am always fine, and there's nothing wrong with me despite having multiple things wrong with me, so I feel like that also factors into why I struggle to ask basic help. My son is 1 year old, and one thing we've been very conscious of is staying away from phrases like "you're okay." It seems small, but it can minimize how someone feels, like what they're feeling isn't valid. Instead, we try things like "that's scary, isn't it?" when he falls, or "I know you're hungry, but we're going to have dinner in 5 minutes" when he's hungry and crying. Small things, but they matter. Same, this was kind of a missing puzzle piece for me. I feel so called out right now. And some of us had a parent that taught both lessons. Yay. Don't you know how much I care about you? I buy all your food and give you a place to live. I deal with your bad attitude, and am always just trying to make you happy. And I know how smart you are, and you should be getting all A's like in elementary school. And stop crying, you are just trying to manipulate me. Have you even thought of anyone but yourself? You're 14, and should be taking better care of me and our family. Your dad works so hard, and I do too. The least you can do is be home every night to make dinner and clean. You want to join sports or theater, and have no regard for your family. I never was allowed any activity after school, and she ruined my high school by taking me out my entire junior year so I could be homeschooled and work at her in-home daycare. Frequent apologizing, flinching, not being able to accept compliments, trouble trusting people, and excessive helpfulness. Edit. I am shocked by the amount of people who can relate to this. I am really sorry y'all had shitty childhoods. Don't forget not liking to be touched. Ah yes, my main personality trait. Really good signs. Also, the person can always be serious, hardly smile. Very into work and personal performance or perfection. Edit. The person can also have trouble playing, or joking around, or teasing loved ones, and being the recipient of those things. Edit 2. These and the parent's statements seem to be resonating with many, so here is what is hopefully a pick-me-up. You, nor anyone reading this that identifies in this category, is truly broken. These people may be a little bruised and tussled perhaps, but still amazing and wonderful to more people that you can imagine. I think that the people in this category had more positive change in the world, something they often have a hard time believing than negative, what they may think all they do amounts to. You're all loved. Black heart, yellow heart, green heart, blue heart, purple heart, black heart. Because they've been taught all their life they're always not enough, and conditioned to expect punishment for any mistake made. This is very much me. In the past, my boss has given legitimate advice on how to do a better job on a task, and it's not easy to push aside the voice in my head that's screaming, "You stupid fuck up. You did it again. They all hate you. They are going to kill you," and quietly listen to what they are saying. Everyone is different, but one that automatically raises a red flag for me, and makes me extremely worried, is when someone flinches for no reason. I wouldn't say it's for no reason, but I don't know what other words to use. So really sorry about that. Like, you raise your voice slightly at them and they flinch, you raise your hands to grab something near them and they flinch, you look at them in a certain way and they flinch, you hug them and they flinch, etc., etc. I joke about being a fainting goat. But I am so hypervigilant that I nearly jump out of my skin at any kind of startle. But this is exactly why I am like this. My old boss used to be like this. Seemed completely well-adjusted, healthy person, but if you startled her she would jump out of her skin. We used to clomp down the hallway to make as much noise as possible before entering her office. Found out much later she had an abusive dad who worked nights, who used to rage, and kept her walking on eggshells her entire childhood. I had a chaotic childhood where I never knew which parent would go off at any time. My so kind of gives me a heads up before he comes into the room. But even then I am startled. It has gotten a little better recently, since I figured out why. I was diagnosed with PTSD, and a lot of my memories are blocked out, but my therapist helped me connect the hypervigilance to my childhood. I do this sometimes. For similar reasons. I don't think I have it quite as bad as this. If we're just talking about being startled, being touched unexpectedly is a major trigger. I am liable to throw a punch in such a situation without even thinking about it twice, but yeah, I don't talk about it much. This is a really common indicator for physical abuse, but I am someone who jumps or flikies at most things, and overall I had a great childhood. I always feel bad when people notice how jumpy I am because I feel like they might think poorly of my wonderful parents, where in reality, I am just an anxious person. Oh shit, yeah, I have had this happen. Normal people don't know how it's like to feel so scared when someone puts the groceries down a little too hard or clangs the plates in the sink. Living in an abusive household is a hell of a trip. Flinch or freeze. I tend to freeze and start shaking. I'll flinch if I am touched and not expecting it, such as being asleep and then someone tries to wake me up. Can relate. I was 47 and sitting in an impromptu meeting at work with two of the company owners. Normally as good-natured as can be, but one of them, a grizzled guy in his late 60s, was really worked up about some aspect of the company's operations not running well. Not only was this not my fault, it was I who analyzed the numbers and brought it to his attention. So I clearly hadn't done anything wrong. He was grateful that I found this issue since it wound up saving the company a lot of money. But at the moment he was getting worked up and he snapped. Pounded the conference room table just once and raised his voice. God damn it, this pisses me off. I was sitting right next to him. It caught me so off guard. This has never happened to me before as far as I can recall. But I flinched. I flinched so hard I had to turn my face away from him. And after a moment I got up and left the room. Went into my office, closed the door, and it took me about 20 minutes to regain my composure. Jesus. Did he notice and come and check up on you? No, he's a clueless old bastard. My dad would hit me when I was younger, but stopped around middle school age. He would get mad at me if I flinched when he went to grab something nearby me, like it was my fault for being afraid of him. I think he stopped hitting me after this one time. He went too far. He had me pinned up against the wall while kind of choking me. The memory is pretty foggy now, but I remember my mom going completely off on him after that incident. I flinch every time people yell or raise their voice, like to the point where if I don't almost dissociate myself, I will start crying or start experiencing anxiety if the yelling is that bad. But when I was little, my older sister used to torment me as sisters do, and she used to pretend to hit me, like she'd swing at me but wouldn't make contact. At first it was just what we did to piss each other off and get on each other's nerves, and then after a while she started to notice I was developing a really severe nervous twitch every time she or somebody lifted an object up or raised their arms or hands. She obviously knew she fucked up badly and had to stop and try to reverse what she did, since people were starting to raise eyebrows at how much I would flinch over nothing. She apologized to me and still continues to, even as adults, and she once told me she regretted ever starting that because of how bad I once got. We laugh at it now and I am able to joke about it with her, but as a kid it was not a fun thing to deal with. I can say as an adult I rarely flinch unless I feel like I have a reason to. But aside from my sister's torment, flinching can really be a red flag for some people. Yo, relatable. I think my flinch response is just from my older brothers being older brothers. I don't think anyone actually maliciously hit me, but they'd hide behind corners and jump out at me and whatnot. I think I am better about not being as flinchy now as an adult, but I still have a strong startle response when I round a corner or open a door and someone's on the other side. Boundary issues are common, but reactions still are an individual thing. What helps to keep in mind is the 4F model of trauma responses. Fight, flight, fawn and freeze. When you notice somebody's reactions are easily categorized as one of those, and it is a very persistent pattern, adverse childhood circumstances of some sort are a pretty safe bet. Edit. To fawn equals to court favor by a cringing or flattering manner, so basically the stuff pathological people pleasers are made of. Is the general idea here that they've already been through traumatic situations enough times that they've wired themselves for a consistent choice within the 4Fs? As far as I am educated on this subject, and as far as I understood your question, the 4Fs are a fear response, and depending on one's resilience, your nervous system might develop one of these responses as a main response. Something needs to happen very early in life, and repeatedly over a long period of time. In short, 4Fs equals fear response equals survival. My fear response is freeze, and I hate it. Although with time and the help of therapy, it has gotten a lot better. Seeming like they have it all together and definitely don't need any help from anyone. Oh, something serious is happening, make a joke. Oh, your anxiety is debilitating. Better go isolate yourself because God forbid you let anyone know you're struggling, and that you could use some support. When did the voice in my head get Reddit? That might been the joke in a serious situation you were talking about. Unfortunately, I find that reaching out hurts twice as much because there isn't support, and you're reminded you are on your own. So it's kind of the most responsible choice to isolate and prevent poisoning the well. That's me. The few people I have opened up to have either started treating me differently or use it as ammo to fight me with. I guess it's a lie when I tell people I am an open book now, lol. They read through this entire thread and nodded the whole time. Stop looking through my camera. My experiences can be extremely defensive when they are wrong, difficulty trusting good experiences, or motivations in other short time, saving money generous to a fault sometimes bad choice in relationship partners, and friendsable to find joy in very small things. I work with someone who has difficulty trusting good intentions from others. So it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. She keeps questioning and treating the person with suspicion and paranoia until the person distances themselves. Then she can claim she was right all along. Being very calm and collected in serious or emergency situations. Having to deal with stressful stuff all my life has made me very capable in tense situations. This could go the complete opposite way to BTW, just my experience. Many of my friends have me listed as their emergency contacts instead of their parents, because they're like, I know that you can actually help instead of just flip out. My childhood wasn't tough in the my parents hated me or treated me badly sense, but they are just basically children, completely unreliable, unable to plan, spiteful in the way teens are. I had to take care of everything, so now I am just good at keeping it together. Good people don't always make good parents. Just basically children, completely unreliable, unable to plan, spiteful in the way teens are. Wow, that's a great way of putting it. This is why we're estranged rather than anything they did. Having to parent your own parents is not worth the frustration and stress. Low self-esteem, feels obligated to deal with things all on their own to not bother, has severe trust issues, either pours all their love on something or someone and doesn't know when to stop or doesn't give a shoot. So how does someone become all of these things without the traumatic childhood? I have pretty much all those symptoms, and I had a great childhood and no real traumatic experiences. Sometimes we just have difficulty doing certain things. Either isolated or poor choices in friends, unhealthy romantic relationships, unhealthy use of substances, low self-esteem, dependence on others for validation, poor self-regulation of emotions and behavior, easily heightened and/or experience anxiety, no goals or lower than they could achieve, and anything else in any combination of these. Hey man, that's literally me to a T. Are you okay? I am getting there, man. Still lonely, unhappy, and overwhelmed by life. But I am forcing my way through it. Trying therapy, that's about a year in the making, but it doesn't seem to help much. And between all of my shit as well as working full-time and going to school full-time, I just feel fucking drained. I am not doing half of those things, and I feel drained. I don't know you or your situation, but being able to do those things while in this state is very impressive to me. One thing that helps me is seeing posts like this and comments like yours. It sucks to know others are suffering, but there's an odd comfort in knowing that you aren't the only one, and that it is unfortunately a normal, common thing. Love you, friend. And proud of you. Yes, an odd comfort knowing we are not alone in the loneliness. This was me for so many years. I was stuck in this rut for so much longer than I needed to be before I finally sought out help. My adult life was a car crash. For anyone in this situation currently, please do yourself the biggest favor in life and seek out a bit of help. I rue the lost years. Treatment for everyone is different. I happen to need medication, Not everyone does, but getting yourself into talking therapy and learning coping skills is a game changer. I know money is tight for so many of us, but if there is any way you can tweak your budget to try to accommodate it, it's honestly the biggest gift you could ever give to yourself. I'm no longer suicidal, and I no longer feel worthless and utterly insignificant. My childhood still affects me, but I have managed to put most of it behind me, and I am able to look ahead now instead of always back. I have a lovely, steady job with prospects, and I have taken up a hobby, and the best thing is that I am starting to feel like I am worth something. And that is reflected in how people now treat me, because I won't tolerate the kind of shit I used to tolerate from people, letting them walk all over me and use me. It's been a wonderful few years working on myself, and my only regret is that I didn't seek help out earlier in life. XXX. You just described me perfectly. But my home life was fine. I am still with my parents. It's my school life that fucked me up. Defensiveness. If you're one of those people who get super defensive about even the slightest error, it's usually a good sign that they grew up in an environment where it was definitely not okay to make mistakes. You can't really tell. Traumas affect everyone differently. Wow. You are still with us. Thanks for being such a nice person. As long as you are here, why not like this video and subscribe to our channel? Also, you can press the bell icon so you won't miss any future uploads.